I'm your host, Carolyn Solo, LCSW, EMDR therapist, and mom of 3 daughters. Thank you for joining me.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to episode 68 of the Future Template Parent Podcast. It's been really exciting this week because I've had so many people download the podcast. I'm about to hit 5,000 downloads, which is super exciting. So thank you, everybody, for listening and sharing it and letting other people know about the podcast. Thank you. Also, I am dealing with some tech issues this week because one of my dear darling daughters spilled water on my laptop and fried it. So guess who gets to buy a new laptop this weekend? But so hopefully the tech is sounding okay. I'm kind of making it up as I go along today. Anyway, if you don't know me, I am Dr. Carolyn Solo, LCSW, PhD, EMDR consultant, and mom of 3 daughters. And thanks for joining me today. Today, I want to talk a bit about something I'm seeing with a lot of EMDR therapists who are making the switch to intensives or who are adding intensives to their practice. First, I'm going to talk about what I'm seeing and why I think it's problematic, and then I'm going to talk about what I recommend you think about when it comes to designing your new practice schedule that includes intensives. So, one of the big missteps I see therapists make when they add intensives to their practice is doing just that. They just add them, and they don't change anything else or take anything away. They squeeze this really demanding, and intensive is demanding on us as therapists, and potentially draining therapy approach into their already full one-to-one therapy practice without changing anything else, right? They have 20 clients a week and maybe they were already feeling burned out and intensives are supposed to help, but they're scared to change anything. So they just add on intensives, maybe one day a week, on the weekend, in the evening, and squeeze everything else around that. And guess what? That leads to major burnout, which is one of the many things therapists are trying to solve, burnout, when they add intensives. So where does this come from? Where do I think this kind of impulse comes from? And it's really understandable, right? Sorry, just scrolling down my notes here. Like I said, tech issues today. For most people, it comes from the fear that this won't work, of course, right? That you won't be able to have a financially viable practice and that you will lose your income and be screwed. And that is so valid. I'm not trying to downplay that at all. But I also think it's worth looking closely at that fear and thinking about how to take really good care of those parts of yourself that are really scared, and then also make some decisions that honor those parts of yourself that are burnt out, right? We have to balance and give and respect all those parts of us because they all have needs that are important. And, we could continue to make financial practice decisions from only a place of financial scarcity, and financial concerns are so important. I'm not downplaying that, but we also have to consider, why are we making this change? There is a little bit of a transition, and there's today's decision, but then there's 6 months from now, and how could things be different in 6 months from now? And of course, you're going to need to build in your own, cushion or, backup or whatever. But in general, just adding it on and changing nothing else is a burnout. It's just a recipe for burnout. Something else I'm also seeing that's definitely contributing to burnout is people not enforcing their cancellation policies with intensives. And I think that comes from that fear of oh my gosh, it's so much money, enforcing a cancellation fee of potentially $1,000 or whatever. How could I do that to somebody? Well, yeah, but then you're also out that $1,000, right? And you set aside time for someone and then they don't show or they cancel at the last minute. Speaking of financial fears, that's going to screw you financially if you're not enforcing that cancellation policy. I talk a lot in my one-to-one coaching and in my group program about having a robust cancellation policy with individual hourly clients as well, but particularly intensives because that's what I focus on with people. If you're really upfront with potential clients about your cancellation policy, you're really clear that you will enforce it, okay? And very clear about, if you have any exceptions, being extremely clear about that, not just in emergencies. You really need to spell that out because there's a lot of gray area there. And if you do all that, if you read through it really carefully with them, I'm a huge advocate for for taking time in, whether it's, it's in your intake session of being like, let's both go over this cancellation policy so we know that we're agreeing to the same thing. Okay. If you do all of that, then you have every reason to abide by it. The person's agreeing to it. If when you read through that, they're like, no way, well then great. Better to know now than the day before, right? This is your livelihood. It is a serious issue. And the work is serious. If a client is canceling repeatedly or with, less than 48 hours or whatever your policy is, they are not honoring the effort that you are putting in to being ready to work with them, to setting aside that time for them. And they are not honoring the effort that they need to put into the work that they're going to do, right? Again, if you need support with this, reach out to me. I'm here for you. The other thing I'll say too is like, it's really hard if you've set aside 5 hours for someone, even if they cancel 2 or 3 days before, it might be really hard to fill that time. And then there you go, that's lost income. So really think carefully about what you need your cancellation policy to be, not what you think people will be okay with, but what you need. If they're not okay with it, then they won't do it. That's fine. But you have to do what you need to do for you, right? And not like have a cancellation policy that you think other people will like or approve of. Okay. So what to do about this? Well, I think it's ideal when you're adding intensives to your practice to be very intentional about how you do it. I have not seen a single person in my experience who just threw them in on top of everything else and is actually feeling good about how it all went down. Like they're not now running themselves like ragged, having just thrown everything together, right? This does require intention. So what do you need to do first? You need to know what is the practice that you actually want, right? And that means how many individual clients a week? That means, if any, maybe you don't want any, that's fine. How many intensives a month? How much income do you need to bring in a month? How much time off do you need, whatever? What do you want your rate to be? What hours of the day do you want to work? What days of the week? And what intensive structure you want to use. Do you want to do a 15-hour intensive and then refer that client out to someone who can be their ongoing therapist? That's what I do. That's fine. Are there a few clients you plan to continue with on your caseload? That's fine too. These I have a couple of those as well. These questions are a good place to start. Your current clients are your best intensive leads anyway, right? They already know you, like you, trust you, know that you do good work. Just because you've always worked with them weekly doesn't mean you can't change your practice and you can't change how you work with them. Okay. Maybe you could see them once a month for 3 hours if that works for you, if that actually works for you. If you're struggling to find words to talk to current clients about intensives, like, guess what? That's another thing that we'll work on if you work with me either in a one-to-one or a group container. And my next group is starting in January of 2025. And I still have a few individual one-to-one coaching packages for this fall, and the price is going to go up. There's my daughter behind me. The price is going to go up next year in 2025. So just a heads up. So I want you to go through your client list one by one. Who's a good candidate for an intensive based on the work you're doing now? Maybe there's some stuff they're really stuck on that you never get to. Amazing. Who do you want to refer out? Who are you just not gelling with anymore, or you're stuck, or you're just ready for them to move to somebody else? Whatever it is, the reasons are okay. Even if your reason is just, I need to make space for changes in my practice, all of that is okay. You are allowed to do that. It's your business. You do it ethically. You do it with enough time. It's your business. Okay. I just got someone call me and I had to turn them down because of a variety of reasons, but they said, oh, I want to work with you because my current therapist who took me on a few weeks ago now has to take a leave of absence for health issues. She wasn't angry at that person. Like, life happens. So, so yeah, who do you want to refer out? Who will you continue to see weekly from that list, if anyone? Who will you do an intensive with and then refer out? Like, going through your client list one by one. Come up with a plan for each client and then make a date for when you'll tell them about it and stick to it. And you don't have to do everybody at once, make sure you're giving them enough notice, but also make sure you're spreading it out for yourself so it doesn't feel like, oh my God, this week I'm telling everyone, right? And also telling a few people at a time, you're going to get a feel for what it feels like to do that. And you're going to sort of see some of the ways that people respond, which my guess is won't be as horrible as you might be fearing. Okay. Remember, that fear part is very protective, but it often keeps us from really, moving in a way that actually aligns with what we want and need. That sort of self-energy piece, right? Excuse me. So yeah, come up with a plan for each client, set a date that you're going to tell them, have this conversation, and do it. Okay, make a spreadsheet, whatever you need to do. This is what I did. I tell coaching clients when we're doing this to think about phase 1 and phase 2 and what you're going to do in phase 1 versus phase 2 to get to that ideal practice. Phase 1 is a few months, like 3 months usually, we say. What are your goals for your practice in 3 months? What are some, really doable goals? And how will you get there? You need to set some weekly goals, like whether it's networking, talking to those clients, whatever it is. Goals are important, and dating them and choosing them. And then phase 2 is a year from now. It's you with that ideal practice, that ideal practice that you know what it looks like I already talked about. And I have some earlier episodes that talk about like the structure you want for your practice. And that's a whole module in my coaching is like, how do you come up with what you want your ideal practice and your ideal intensive model to be? Right. So phase 2 is a year from now. It's like you've accomplished your phase 1 goals, and then you spend the next 9 months on those phase 2 goals. What do you need? What do you still need to do after you've done those phase 1 goals? I really encourage phase 1 to be weekly goals. And if you really stick with that and start to see some shifts, you could maybe go back to doing things monthly or twice a month, whatever feels good to you, and you're going to have a sense of what feels good to you. Hi, oldest daughter back there. You're going to have a sense of what feels good to you after you've done some of this for 3 months, after you've made some of these changes and you're starting to see that the world doesn't come crashing down when you make changes, right? So in general, what's the message? It's all about intention, right? Crafting your practice with intention, adding intensives with intention, going through your client list with intention. And if you're not doing that, you're going to end up in the same place. Totally burned out, feeling stuck, hating your work life. Please don't do that. Intensive EMDR therapists are a gift to this world and have so much to offer. Spend the time it takes to come up with a plan that's going to allow you to build this practice that's sustainable for you and therefore is best for your clients and the people that you want to serve. So just a quick little episode there about something that I've been hearing people talk about, not making those mistakes that I'm seeing people make when they add intensives, right? Please don't burn yourself out again, right? Please come up with that plan for the practice that you want and stick to it. Please, please, please. The world needs you to do that, okay? We need you. We need you doing intensives and making huge transformations in people's lives. But you can only do that if you're well enough. And I mean that in every sense of the word. Financially, emotionally, psychologically, physically, right? And burnout affects us on all of those fronts. So please know if you want support with any of this, you know that I can do this for you. Reach out to me on Instagram. That's usually the fastest way to get in touch with me. If you don't already follow me on Instagram, my Instagram is @futuretemplateparent. You can always DM me. I love hearing from people. You can also check out my website, www.futuretemplateparent.com. I'd really love to help you, even just chatting in DMs and giving you some advice that way. So everyone have a great week. Just a short little episode. I hope this was helpful, and I'll talk to you next week.